Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back with the 239th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. It is the eve of Rosh Hashanah and it's the equinox, an auspicious moment for all. And there's another reason too, which is a secret to my family, which I'll tell you soon enough. But we are back. We are glad to be with you. There is a ton of stuff that's always going on in the world, and we are going to have a great time for the next 2 hours. We're going to finish up at the top of the second hour or at the bottom, however you want to call it. After we have these great discussions, we're going to start with our usual poem from the wonderful Mimi Gurman, our poet laureate. We get a quick update from what's happening in Waldport, Oregon. We're going to go to Howie Hawkins, the presidential candidate from the Green Party. How are you going to find out if you're going to run again? And we want to talk a bit about Ukraine and green energy in that war. Then we're going to shift over. We're going to talk about the campaign, the developing campaign to run Jimmy Kimmel for president. And just before we came on, the news has spread that Jimmy has got his show back. Apparently, we need to talk about that. It's a very big deal if it's true, and or even if it's not true. And we're joined by David Saltman to talk about this, the idea that is a lot of people talking about on starting a separate network, which with the Kimmel, Colbert, Jon Stewart, Rachel Maddow network, which I think really we need to discuss if that's a viable possibility. Second hour, we're going to talk again with our refugee from MAGA world, and talk about converting there. And also, I do have to mention that the great one of our frequent guests and co-hosts is Carl Grossman. He's currently in the hospital with a minor heart problem. So, Carl, we're going to send you our best. And God, Gary O'Connor is going to talk to us a bit about our ongoing research into solarizing Dodger Stadium, and Milo Reason has jumped in with this brilliant, beautiful discussion of putting solar panels over canals and aqueducts. It's been talked about as an abstract, but we actually have a picture of that in progress in tangible form. So let's see if we can stuff all this in 2 hours. Mimi Gurman, out in rattlesnake country, or are you back in the city?
I'm in Portland.
Oh, you're in
Yeah,
Portland
I'm
where the
in Portland. I'm at
rattlesnakes.
work. I'm waiting for a client to come in a half hour,
All
so
right.
I won't be able to stick around. But yeah,
Well, you're where in the when you're in the east in the desert, the rattlesnakes run around in the desert, and when you're in Portland, the rattlesnakes run the government.
that's
So
exactly right.
let's hear your poem for the day, please, and then you can give us a quick update on
Okay,
Wald.
okay, that's great. Steve, I put the words to the poem in the chat so you can keep up with the words that aren't supposed to be going over the radio. Okay. The revolution has arrived, chasing its wheels in a homegrown shitstorm, reeking of burned up treads on the back of democracy. Oh, ode to the glut of spineless politicians who spin their donuts in the empty lot of the five and dime, tossing morality out their windshields like it was a stale bag of fries curled up on the floor, stuck in a gurney of grime deep beneath the front seat from last week's Mickey D's, like it was the devil himself. It wasn't what we thought it would be. All love and flowers. And let's all just get along now, was it? No, 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 no. This here is the revolution of the great giddy up. It's got us by some big old castrated balls and it's coming for our horns. Hold on tight, little buckaroo. This time the revolution is for real and it's a real fly swatter. Yes, sirree. It's a feedlot of the Zero Amendment. Because none of the ones written by Grandpa get to be had by you. You, the sorry ass waiting for whose streets? They are never going to be yours, dear sisters and brothers. They showed us, didn't they? We are the feedlot now, fodder for the icy whitewash of the newly established order of morons. The joke is, these assholes never even wanted a revolution. They just wanted an all-white world. Now, didn't they? But we sure did. We wrote songs about it, protested for it. Pretty sure we never prayed about it. But boy, oh boy, did we want it bad. Woulda, coulda, been a good one too. But those slimy politicians, those stinking mangy whores, those lost ass-kicking scaredy cats with a capital D on their lapels, those Democrats whose high road sent us into the low road of America's gutters. Those liberators of fascismo, those Wall Street kingmakers, those seekers who party with haves, not the have-nots, those blood-sucking leeches who pretended to give a fuck, all bought the sausage and fired it up for breakfast on a cracked cast iron skillet, and we all got fried. Who knew? Who fucking knew it was gonna be like this? The revolution has arrived, and it looks like Germany mixed with grits. Thank you.
Woot! Mimi, you've added the dimension to your presentations there. That was a more dramatic reading than you've
It's a
been doing.
long poem.
I like that. I like that. It was good. It was really good. So party with the haves. I like that. Party with the
Yeah.
haves,
It did hit
not
me
with
the
the
other
have.
night. It did,
That's good.
Sluggo. It hit me the other night that all this talk of revolution that we've wanted for so long, that we've been working for so many decades, we haven't gotten it. And not only haven't we gotten it, but they got it and they never asked for it. And here it is, and this is what that is.
Well, but do they have it? I mean, we're going to talk about this. Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air, or will be tomorrow. I watched his, rerun the other night of Kimmel, and the thing is that his show really had a lot of high production values. It's not a cheap show; it's an expensive show. Colbert's show, I mean, a lot of special effects. They got a band, they got this, they got that. I mean, a lot of resources. So we're going to talk. We're going to talk about Ukraine in a minute, but and we're going to go back to that. And when Jimmy Kimmel we're going to talk about Jimmy Kimmel, and we're going to talk with Dave Saltman about the mechanics of doing a new network, what that'll be like. But let's get that in a minute. Lynn Feinerman, and then I want to talk about Waldport, okay? Mimi?
Yeah, okay, cool, Sluggo.
Okay, good. Lynn, go ahead, Lynn Kimmel. Lynn Feinerman.
I wish. Um, so, Ms. Mimi, whose poetry I adore, I totally disagree with you. This is simply the empire striking back, and they are always like this. They are always the assholes that they are. And we had Sunday in your lovely state of Oregon. There were 5 cities participating. And what Bill McKibben said about that is that it's time to celebrate, because no matter what the oily bustards do, solar is taking over.
Yeah.
It is definitely taking over the entire planet. The United States is way behind. There is a revolution going on, and these people are simply dramatizing their hateful, bitter envy.
Well, as a historian, I'll say there's no more ferocious reactionary force than a group of men who've lost their status. This is a motivator that's not sufficiently talked about. But if you look at Nazi Germany, God, I wish we do more and more these days. The German people were taught to believe right from birth that they were superior. If you go back to the 1800s, this predates Hitler by a long shot. But there was always an inherent sense in German culture that they were better than everybody else. And when they lost World War II, World War One, they never recovered, and that's what Hitler wrote. It was anti-Semitism because they were the scapegoats for the realization that the German people couldn't handle that they were not number one, that they were not superior to everybody else, and that's why you had this master race nonsense. Yes, American exceptionalism, says Jane Grun here in the chat. You know, it's the same garbage. Well, we're number one, right? We're better than everybody, but we're not number one. And the guys also can't handle the fact that women are superior. So, you know, you've got this double whammy coming. First, Germany was not number one. Then now America is not number one. And in neither case, well, of course, the German women were way more suppressed under Hitler. Now you've got women just actually running for president. And you have men out there seriously proposing to repeal the 19th Amendment. And the whole 2016 2026 election will be about women, as has every election been since 2016, really. You know, Hillary and then Biden for whatever, and then what's her name? I mean, you know, these are the two issues. And Trump has so far buried the American future in technological and economic terms, as well as spiritual terms, that this is really a catastrophe. And this is what's driving the American right wing. And I got to say, and we're going to get to this in a minute, it is impossible. This just happened within the last hour or two. And the reinstatement of Jimmy Kimmel was a very, very big deal. I mean, I'm sorry, this is huge. So, and I've been watching his show. So let's go do a little more business, then we're going to come back to that. Mimi, do you have a quick report on Waldport, Oregon? What's happening there?
I do, but I hear that Mayor Heidi is in the room.
Oh, Mayor Heidi, you're here.
You
Talk
here?
about talk about uppity women, Mayor. Mayor. I mean,
I,
really,
I think it's
don't you know
I
your
think
place?
wrong Heidi.
Oh, it
Oh,
is the wrong Heidi.
it's a
Okay, so
different Heidi.
I do
Okay,
have
well,
an
it's the
update.
right Heidi, but it's not
Okay,
the mayor of
okay.
Waldport.
I
So go ahead.
I have an update. I spoke to Mayor Heidi this morning, and she just wanted everybody to know that there was an elder abuse lawsuit against Dan Cutter, who is the city manager of Waldport. And the elder abuse case that was against him was drawn up, I don't know the right words, because Dan Cutter for at least a year has been abusing and bullying this woman who has, taken up this elderly abuse case against him. So he, for over a year, has, let me see here. He has called this woman, a criminal, a thief, someone who steals from children, and says that she was a child molester. None of these things are true. So the lawyer, however, today, and it was a city lawyer, told this woman that Dan Cutter said sorry, everybody, I apologize. The lawyer went to the woman and said, here's the problem. In Oregon, we have no law that protects anyone, whether you are an elder, a teenager, a child, it doesn't matter. We have no law, no legislation protecting people from online bullying, from saying that there is harm in that, unless you commit suicide.
Oh God.
Now California and Washington both have laws for this. So what happened was that this lawyer said, because we don't have legislation about harm through bullying, through online bullying, there is a very good chance that even though we have proof that Dan Cutter was doing all these things, that she could still lose. And because there's no precedent in our state. So if she lost, she would have to pay over $50,000 of lawyer fees, and she can't do that. So she had to drop the case.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is, back to the bullying and abusive behavior of, everybody we've been
Well,
talking about.
Dan Cutter, for anybody who's been late to the dance here, is basically the Donald Trump of Waldport, Oregon, and we've been dealing with him ongoing here and with Mayor Heidi. And so, thank you for that report. I don't know,
Yeah,
it'll be interesting. Why is a lawyer in the employ of the city of Waldport telling a private citizen this? I don't know, but
yeah,
so
I don't know. So Mayor Heidi is still receiving all kinds of lack of support from the city council, so she can't fire him. Even though he's an employee of the city, she cannot, as the mayor, fire him unless she has the support of the city council, which she does not have. So
So the recall election will hopefully change the nature of the city.
exactly. And so the ask for today is that anyone who feels like it should send a postcard, an actual postcard of support for Mayor Heidi and everything that she's going through and trying to help people with, to send a postcard that just says, we love the people's mayor, or we love our mayor, whatever it is, and send it to P.O. Box 1120, Waldport, Oregon 97394. Just, support for Heidi, who is going through all of this stuff against the city council and Dan.
What's the post box again?
Post box is P.O. Box 1120, Waldport, Oregon 97394.
Okay.
And the reason that postcards would be awesome is that the entire staff would see them.
Okay. Heidi should say Heidi, yes. We love Heidi. That's
Yes.
good enough.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
Okay,
good. Thank you, Mimi, for the latest update.
You're
I want
welcome.
to go now to Howie Hawkins, our great Green Party guy. Howie, what is the latest from Ukraine? I got to tell everybody, I've been watching on Netflix. I don't know how many of you have Netflix, but I've been watching this incredible documentary series called Turning Point. It's one of the best kind of geopolitical documentaries I've seen. And it's very, very substantial. And it covers a whole chunk of modern European history. And it concludes pretty much in Ukraine. The last three or four episodes are about the transition of Ukraine during the fall of the Soviet Union. And it does cover the fact, we've discussed this on this podcast or Zoom call, that Ukraine, when the Soviet Union fell, Ukraine became the world's third largest nuclear power, behind U.S. and Russia, because it inherited a tremendous number of nuclear weapons from the Soviet Union. And in the 1990s, it turned over those weapons to Russia with a vague reassurance of security, and obviously not enough. And I had to turn it off finally. I just was so angry. It discusses the rise of Putin, how he became prime minister, and when I finish it, I'll talk more about it next week. But it really, really incredible how important, pivotal is the word Ukraine really is. Howie, you brought us last week Svetlana from Ukraine, the Green Movement in Ukraine, and I've been toying with the idea of trying to portray the war in Ukraine as a war between renewables and Putin's oil, gas, and nuclear. Are we going anywhere with that?
Well, as we talked about last week, the alliance of Putin and Trump is a carbon bomb with some nukes thrown in on the side. So they're reopening the fossil fuel business between, and Exxon started negotiating with Russia as soon as Trump was inaugurated to get back into Russia. And when they had that summit in Anchorage, Alaska, Putin issued a decree saying Exxon and the other big energy companies from around the world were welcome to come back into Russia. And the nuke side is that Russia is building nuclear reactors they put out on barges into the Arctic Ocean to power oil and gas drilling, both on the land and under the Arctic Ocean. And Russia has most of the gas reserves and oil reserves under the ocean. So, it's an environmental disaster. And meanwhile, what's going on in Ukraine is that last year, Russia targeted their energy system in particular. At the beginning of the war, they were going after, transfer stations and power lines. Last year, they went after the power plants. So they wiped out 8 big thermal plants and 5 hydroelectric dams and cut the power in the country from 18 gigawatts to 9 gigawatts. And that made the winter cold and dark in a lot of places. And that, over the course of the war, Ukraine's pre-war capacity was 36 gigawatts. So you can see it's been cut down to a quarter of what it was. And, we talked last week about how distributed solar and wind with batteries and other forms of storage is not only good for the climate in terms of producing electricity, but it's more defensible because you don't have to wipe out just one centralized thermal plant. You got to take out whole fields of solar panels or wind generators. So Ukraine is building wind generation and solar power. By the end of this year, it'll be about 0.4 gigawatts, or about 5% of what they have left. So they still have a long way to go. So that's the situation they face. And we're
Okay.
going to have a discussion about this. Actually, Dennis Bondar, who's been on here a couple times about the Zaporizhia nukes that Russia seized. An anti-war Russian who's in exile now, Ilya Butsrakis, and a Vermont state senator who's a Ukrainian American, Tanya Vyhovsky, who just got back from Ukraine. And there'll be a podcast tomorrow night about that. I'll put the information about that in the chat. And the title of it is Ukraine in the crosshairs of the superpowers. So that's the situation they're facing.
Will you'll put the link to that chat in the please. So the bottom line here is that if Ukraine stated as a goal of the war and of its survival that it wants to go 100% renewable, this would become in the public eye a war between Solartopia and the Hades of the fossil nuke Satans, the great Satans of Trump and Putin. And I don't see that Ukraine has a choice. What prompted this was somewhere along the way, I read maybe wrongly that there was a discussion of Ukraine building more nuclear plants, which is absolutely insane in any stretch of the imagination. And they had 6 reactors. Zaporizhia is the biggest nuclear power station in Europe, and 1 minute they're in Ukraine, and the next minute Putin's got them. You're talking about 6 gigawatts of power here, and it's never happened before that a conquering army has stolen nuclear power reactors. Of course, the Ukrainians went into Kursk, and they took 2 briefly from the Russians. But the idea of nuclear power reactors being traded back and forth by warring armies is beyond insane. So, Howie, I am still, I believe, a voting member of Greenpeace. In 1991, I became a senior advisor, and I love Greenpeace. It's the only kids club with a Navy. And there you go. Steve's showing us that is where Zaporizhia is, and the red, and where is Kursk? Not far away, or is it vice versa? But this is beyond insane, and this has to be dealt with. So, Howie, if you can invite as many people as possible involved with this to come with us next week, I want to try and recruit Greenpeace. And if we can get the world ecological movement to see this war as a fossil nuke war versus renewables, that would be a big deal. Of course, if Ukraine signs on to going 100% renewable, they'll incur the wrath of Trump. But what choice do they have?
Well, I think we've got to pitch it to the climate movement. First of all, here in the United States, that solidarity with Ukraine is also solidarity with the climate. And getting Ukraine leadership to go off nukes. I mean, the situation there is they already have contracts signed with Westinghouse to build 4 more nukes, but they don't have the money. And with that money, they could build a lot more wind and solar generation. So, that's still theoretical. But that's the mentality of the ruling class in Ukraine. But, the climate movement, like Svetlana Romanko is part of, the Greenpeace group in Ukraine is part of, there are other environmental groups. We should be working with them to put this out there. The Greens in Western Europe have studied this and helped provide information to the Ukrainians, like through the Heinrich Böll Foundation, which is the German Greens Foundation.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Germany is technically headed towards Solartopia. They shut their last reactors a couple of years ago. And by the way, I was watching this Turning Point documentary. It was they had a whole segment. Again, I strongly recommend it's called Turning Point. It's at Netflix. They had a whole segment on the falling of the Berlin Wall, which actually almost happened by accident. It's really, really interesting what happened. They had a Soviet apparatchik was on a press conference and mistakenly, falsely said that the policy had changed and that the wall was now open. He misspoke and everybody believed it, and they opened the wall. That was how it happened. It's amazing. But when that happened, one of the people who crossed over from East into West Germany was Angela Merkel. And, so that stuff happened. So, Howie, let's convene as many people as possible. I'll try and get Greenpeace mobilized for the first segment next week. And let's see if we can make some history here. It'd be great.
Yeah, by the way, the Ukrainians never got the 2 nukes in Kursk. And whether they intended to or not, the Ukrainians never said that was their objective. The Russians said it was, but they never got there. They were dozens of miles away.
Okay. Thanks for the correction. Mike Hurst, did you want to say something? And we're going to move to Jimmy Kimmel, but go ahead.
Yeah, real quick, a couple things. One is it was an East German official, and he accidentally overstated a liberalization
Right.
of people being able to visit the West, and it was taken to somebody asked him a follow-up question, and they said, well, so is there going to be free passage? And he erroneously said yes, and then people started celebrating, and then some people brought some sledgehammers to the celebration, and down went the wall. Reagan had nothing to do with it, and Gorbachev had nothing to do with it.
Right.
It was a misstatement, and a bunch of volunteers brought down the wall.
Yeah, it's actually quite funny. I mean, it's really great to watch that segment of the Turning Point, which is itself quite amazing.
Absolutely, and it just shows that history is driven by accidents as much as plans and other things.
Exactly. Yeah, my favorite law in history is the law of unintended consequences.
Exactly.
I could go on and on about that, but we'll save that for another time. Howie, do you want to jump in further here on this? But we will try and convene next week at 5 a section on Ukrainian Solartopianism.
Well, I just put in the chat a graphic that the Solutions Project did, which is Mark Jacobson's project, the solar engineer at Stanford, which shows how Ukraine could get to 100% clean energy by 2050. And another link to the background technical information that backs up that graphic.
Wow, look at that.
It's certainly possible. And, this is the kind of thing we need to get out to people and then talk to the climate movement and say, if you ignore what Trump is doing with Putin, you're ignoring about the biggest climate bomb on the planet that's about to explode.
Well, let's all put our heads together and frame this in a way. You'll notice, Steve, thank you for putting that back. You'll notice about almost 60% of the projected power for a Solartopia in Ukraine is from wind, more than 40% from onshore and about 15% from offshore. But you know, Ukraine, which is a great plain, just has endless wind power. And by the way, not to anything, but does anybody know who the first American was who really mentioned the future of wind power? You won't find it on Google. I'll give you a hint. It was Abraham Lincoln. When Lincoln, who is from Illinois, which is quite windy, basically has a great quote, which I'll dig up for next week, said that, you know, basically the whole world could be powered with wind. And there were actually windmills back then in the 1800s. They weren't generating electricity, obviously, but they were used to grind corn and pump water. And honest Abe, who, by the way, Abe Lincoln, sorry, I just love these tangents. Abe Lincoln was our really first techno president. Abe Lincoln remains the only president in history who had a patent. And it was Abe Lincoln who set up the American Academy of Sciences in the middle of the Civil War. And he was the one who came up, and I'll dig up the quote. Maybe you find it on the internet about saying that wind power could power the world. In like 1862, he said this. Mike Hirsch, go ahead, and then we're going to go to Jimmy Kimmel. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, yeah. Lincoln also helped with the expansion of the railroads, which was a mixed blessing, and also land grant universities
Yeah,
during the Civil War. So, you know, in many ways, Lincoln was an extremely progressive president, maybe our most progressive. You know, maybe up with FDR.
yeah. Well, also, what Abe really wanted to do when people asked him what he wanted to do when he was done being president, he really wanted to go to California on the Transcontinental Railroad, which didn't yet exist. You know, but he wanted to take Mary out to Yosemite. In fact, he designated Yosemite, which was already being preserved by California. Oh, there it is. As yet, the wind is an untamed and unharnessed force, and quite possibly one of the greatest discoveries hereafter to be made will be the taming and harnessing of the wind. For God's sakes, that's Abraham Lincoln in the 1850s and 60s. And he noted the wind's power exceeded that, you know, of everything else that humans knew. Let's hear it for Abe Lincoln. Where is he now that we need him? I will say this, by the way, as a historian, we all talk about the assassination of John Kennedy. This country has never really recovered from the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Oh, you know what happened after the Civil War should never have happened in terms of race relations, and he would not have allowed it to happen. Andrew Johnson was a horrible plague from hell. Mike, did you want to add something? And then we're gonna chime in
Yeah,
here.
yeah. We've often mentioned that wind turbines can be fitted to prevent harm to birds and bats, but Beverly T raised that issue, and I'd like you to quickly address that.
Beverly, is she on the call here?
She is.
Oh, Beverly, you want to speak up to one thing I'll say very quick. I was in the wind business, not particularly successfully, but I got killed by the Ohio legislature, frankly. It wasn't my fault. But you know, one thing I love to say about windmills is no windmill ever killed a fish. You know, billions of marine creatures are killed by thermal nuclear plants, but I don't see Beverly's hand or where.
She's unmuted.
I
Go ahead, Bill.
I was I'm just really concerned about you know I support you know I don't support nuclear or anything like that, and I understand that we have to move that in that direction, but we really need to look at the you know some of the problems, like a lot of bats and our birds are, you know, and out here I live in the desert, the Mojave Desert, and I support rooftop solar, but what's happening is that I don't know. I'm really concerned about our animals, our wildlife. We really need to start thinking about that as you know, because that's part of the environment. So like I said, I live out in the desert, and we're kind of, I don't know, I think rooftop solar is the
Yeah,
best.
Beverly, you're kind of repeating yourself, but you make some very good points, and we have discussed this in the past. And some people are writing in the chat that better design can minimize harm to
Correct.
birds and bats, and also there are a lot of other threats to birds and bats that we need to look into,
Right.
like high rises. We can replace the glass with things that they can perceive so they can avoid it.
And light pollution too, but yeah. Okay, well, I would just wanted to throw that out because I don't hear much about that in regular conversations, except when I go into a specific environmental sim. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I will say one thing that happened in the last couple of years is, nearly all windmills are white.
Right.
They discovered that by painting and it's all three blades into the wind. We'll have to have Paul Geip on, as Myla suggests, our great wind expert. But if you paint one of the three blades black, it actually has been shown to cut the bird kill by 40%. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting. We have 62 people with us. This is real.
Oh, sorry, I can't hear you.
You're muted.
Muted,
Oh,
Harvey.
Okay, we're waiting for Dave Saltman. Did you hear that? I said that painting one of the windmills blades black cuts bird kill 40%. They did just found that out a couple of years ago. Or almost all windmills are white, and the blades are painted white. But if you paint one of the blades black, God knows why. Obviously, it has to do something to do with bird vision. The bird carnage drops very significantly. So there will be other breakthroughs like that as we move ahead, no doubt about it. So,
Excellent.
I have been in the wind business. I did deal with these issues. You do not want to live real close to a windmill at this point in time. There is a stroboscopic effect when the blades go pass by the tower. There is a thump, and
Right.
it can drive people crazy. So, people should not live real close to a windmill. There are also potential problems with rooftop solar with the inverters. We've talked about that before, but it is solvable. And I will point out that in Germany now, there's been a tremendous movement of people just sticking solar panels on their porches, on their balconies. It's called literally balcony solar. And you see these pictures of these houses and apartment buildings that where people have just taken a solar panel and plastered it on their balconies, and it works just great. So there you go. It's all ingenious, and we're going to show at some point also a covering of solar panel. Maybe you could do it now since we're on this. Solar panels covering an aqueduct. Cheryl Romanic, did you want to jump in real quick?
Yeah, I did want to say one thing. I actually lived on a ranch which had a windmill. Okay, still working. The problem is people think of these big old huge monstrous wind turbines, but there are all sorts of designs for smaller wind producing utility that can be made that are made for smaller places. We don't have to go to these huge turbines, which do make that awful noise that could probably drive somebody insane too if they were too close. But there are lots of other things. I'm trying right now to find the link to show what some of those designs look like. So I'll do that right now.
Yes, please do. We can get back to them later on.
Yeah.
Cheryl, thank you for that. Much
Okay.
appreciated. Okay, we're going to proceed now. At the top of the hour, we're going to be joined by a friend of ours who was back with us a week or two ago, who fled the MAGA movement. And I do want to talk about um, um, the Charles Kirk Memorial and the fact of the range of wow. There we go. Look at all those
Yes.
grid designs. Wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
They're beautiful. Wow, a square windmill. I love that. What's the deal with that? How's it work? Oh, we'll have to have Paul Geip on. Absolutely. Paul Geip is one of the great wind experts. He's an old buddy of mine. Milo and I had him on our Solartopia show the other day, and wow, very cool, very cool. Let's talk. Well, then, very quickly, let's move. I'm waiting for Dave Saltman to come on to talk about the Jimmy Kimmel situation. He's our great TV expert. Let's talk very quickly then. Mila, do you want to show the? Can you show the solar panels over the canal?
Well, I sent that out to Steve. I think he has.
Okay. Let's see if he's got it here. Oh, there you go. This is the future, guys. Look at this. You saw this here first. And we've been talking about this. It was I first heard the idea from a guy named Tom Campbell. So this is a solar panel, obviously it's either a canal or an aqueduct. It cuts the evaporation by God knows how much percent. I mean, you assume it's over 90%. That cuts the evaporation. And the beauty of this, the couple beauties is you don't have to go by land. It does not affect, agriculture in any way. And you don't have to build power lines because the power line obviously goes just straight down the canal. And there you have it. And, this is could be a major, major source of energy here. And with a double benefit. Also, people should know solar panels actually work better when they're cooled. They do not like to be superheated. And so the cooling effect of the underneath water is very positive. I was also told a story, I don't know if it's apocryphal, but somebody told me who knows China pretty well that a coal mine blew up in China and a lake formed and they covered the lake with solar panels that floated. And the floating solar panels are incredibly efficient and were a big deal. So we'll see about that. California's first solar covered canal. Now, I don't know if that's part of the aqueduct or what, but reservoirs and canals both can be covered. I mean, and there you have it. Mickey Leader, did you want to say something real quick, and then we're gonna move on? Go ahead, Mickey. And Mila, did you want? I'm not getting from Mickey here. Mila, did you want to jump in?
Yeah,
Can
well,
you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, real quick, Mickey. All right,
Okay,
Mila, go ahead.
I'm here. I'm here.
Yes.
The
Oh,
stupid
Mickey, you
mute-
wanted to.
okay.
Well, since
I
we're
s-
on energy, we will come to Jimmy Kimmel. Let's continue this with energy. Mickey, you wanted to make a quick presentation on your birthday?
But it's Rosh Hashanah, and
Yeah.
I'm on my way to the first night Seder. So if you let me just get 2 words in.
Go ahead.
All right. So I just sent to Mike Hirsch and Mike Fox, and I didn't know anybody else's direct emails. The whole proposal coming from New York State Election Integrity Committee, and it was sent. We're trying to get the NAACP and any other organization to go after the legislature in New York State because it's such a mess here that the votes can be stolen any which way from Friday. We don't have protections, and it's very detailed. And the Brennan report is in it. I just sent it to you. I don't know if you can check your
Oh yeah,
email.
put it up on the
I
chat.
don't know how to put it up on the chat, sweetheart. I have an iPhone 16 that's about 3 weeks old.
All right, we'll talk
I
about it
can't
next
figure it
week then. We'll go into
Okay,
detail on it next
But
week.
no, because there's a deadline for the NAACP state convention. So anybody who knows people, send it. Encourage the NAACPs from New York State to sign on to these proposals. Very, very, very important. Okay, so I don't have time
Okay.
to explain it. Well, you don't have time for me to.
Well, you'll
for
come
us
back
to
next.
read it.
You'll come back next week, and we'll talk
What is-
about it in greater
What
detail.
is the
Okay.
site? What is the site, Mickey?
Say it again.
What is the site?
What do you mean? What is the site? What does the site mean?
The URL. Do you have a link?
No, I
All right, well,
sent
listen,
you
if
the
you'll get us-
email. It's
Okay.
all of it's all together on the email. You could look at that and then you could
Okay.
link it. It's done professionally, not by Mickey. I was the conveyor
Okay.
of the information. So,
All right.
all
Thank
right.
you very much.
all
Thank
right,
you.
and
Mickey.
Happy New Year to those who
Yes. Happy New Year
celebrate.
and happy
Thank you.
equinox. Same.
Oh, same to you.
They
Okay.
coincide here. Myla Reeson, our resident astrologer, you want to comment? And then Dave Saltman has joined us, so we're going to start to talk about Jimmy Kimmel and all that. But Myla, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to comment a little bit more on the solar panels over the canal, but Keith Olbermann was speculating last night that he knew from his sources that Jimmy Kimmel would be
Okay.
returning, and
Cool. Well, let's talk about that in a minute. I know. Well, thank you, Mickey Leader. I know you wanted to say something. Then we're going to jump in on Jimmy Kimmel, and we'll be joined at the top of the hour by our great MAGA refugee. We have 62 people with us. Go ahead, Mickey.
Oh, she already talked.
Oh, okay. Oh, Mickey, that
Oh,
was just you.
yeah.
Okay, so all right,
David
Myla, thank you for
Saltman can
that.
turn on his video. Thank
Saltman? If you want, Dave, you want so we can see you. If you don't want to be seen, if maybe you're in your bathrobe or something like that, we can do this. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the wake, there you go, Salty. In the wake of, oh, you got all dressed up for us. Thank you. In the wake of the Charles Kirk debacle, I do want to talk about that a bit. But they had this huge service for him, and I got to say, when we talk about converting from MAGA, I want to talk about this and about Erica Kirk and Donald Trump's unbelievable speech. But Salty, you may have heard that Jimmy Kimmel is going to be back on tomorrow night. I mean, I watched a couple of his shows just to see. That is a high production show. I mean, that's a very expensive show to do. There's a lot of effects, a lot of people, but he's back on. What do you think?
I honestly, I didn't. I've been out all day. I didn't know he was back on.
Tomorrow night, he's going to have him
I'm
back
not
on.
surprised. He brings in a lot of money to whoever the network might be, and that's the one language they all understand perfectly well.
Well, there was a tremendous amount of pressure from all the celebrities. It was like 100 celebrities that signed a letter, you know. I was the name that surprised me the most was Jennifer Aniston, but who knew? So I don't know. I never thought of her as a political activist, but here we are. But I guess if you're a celebrity in Hollywood,
You don't have to be a political activist to know when someone is getting royally hosed by the government.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, here we are. The Times is talking about this. Dorothy Reich, our great Southern California activist. Did you want to chime in on this, Dorothy? Let me see if I can unmute you. But I think it's a very, very big deal that Kimmel got back and so quick. I mean, this is just a matter.
That means he won't be running for president, right?
Well, that's up to us. I mean, if we draft him for president, who's going to stop us?
I think he has more power right now than he would if he were president.
Well, this scenario really took his power to another.
Hard to get a word in edgewise with you guys. I can't turn my picture on.
Okay, well, Dorothy, we can't see you. We were waiting.
But I can't turn it on. I can't turn it on. Try.
Well, just speak your words. We know.
Go ahead and try it now, Dorothy.
Okay.
We know it's you. So go ahead.
Oh, it's me. So I think there are a few factors. First of all, I think that that people canceling their Disney subscriptions in huge numbers, they had to shut down their cancellation.
Really? No, you
got overwhelmed. The people were canceling their subscriptions to Disney. I hear that behind the scenes that artists were saying they're not gonna work for Disney anymore. I mean, Disney is a lot more than just ABC. So they've got a lot going on there. And I frankly think that Ted Cruz, when he said this is straight out of Goodfellas, I think that resonated with
well, and also the other guy from Kentucky, Rand
Paul.
Also, the two of them. What a duo to stand up for Jimmy Kimmel, Rand Paul and Ted Cruz.
Those were the Republicans who said that, but straight out of Goodfellas. That was it's a nice bar you have here. Be ashamed if anything happened to it. That SEC guy, and he had these quotes where he supported free speech, but he was lying then because he helped write Project 2025.
Yeah.
He was always intending to do this, but he
Well,
got
he was
nailed.
really, really upfront about, you know, the pressure that he was going to put using his government office.
No,
I
he
mean,
said-
whatever happened to the Hatch Act, you know, using his government office to suppress networks. I mean, that is completely,
said we could do this the easy way or the hard way.
well, that was right out of Goodfellas. But
Yeah,
you know,
that's what Ted Cruz said.
how many times have Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert completely decimated Ted Cruz? And yet he came back, you know, from Cancun and stood up for him. Yeah, it's just got. You know who else is surprising me is Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley, this horrible right-wing senator from Missouri, has
Yeah.
been really good on the radiation and health issue. I mean, that's you know, that's what's so interesting in many ways about politics. You never know where these guys are going to come
You
from.
know where your friends are.
So Ted Cruz and Rand Paul really rose to the
Well,
moment.
I think if we would have lost the First Amendment, that would have really.
Well, this
And
is a
they
big
said,
deal.
you know, a couple of people said who were familiar with Russia that that's what Putin did first. Putin got rid of the comedians first.
Yes.
And so that was terrifying.
I think since that's Shakespeare quote, right? First we kill all the comedians. Oh no, that was lawyers. David Saltman, as an industry insider, how important do you think this really is?
Well, let's see how it shakes out. I mean, if I think I've never met Ted Cruz, but I do know Bob Iger pretty well. I've known Bob Iger, the chairman of Disney, since he was a sports producer at ABC Sports. We go back a long, long time. And I've known his first wife, and I know his second wife, and I know his children. And I got to tell you, he's a stand-up guy. I mean, he's a multi-zillionaire. You can hate him for that if you must. But I knew him when he was just a regular working guy like me. And he's a lovely guy, and he's got a real heart, and he's really, really super smart, and he's a hell of a businessman. And you know, he's not immune to this pressure. The pressure that, you know, the White House can put on you is immense. But I think that even if the cancellations were I'll bet you $1 that the cancellations weren't that bad, but that he said they were, because he's that sly. And you know, and guess what? He's back on the air. So he caved for a minute, and then he went back to where he was before. And he probably, Jimmy Kimmel is now renegotiating his contract for an extra $5 million a year. I would do that, and a no cut clause, and you know, a pay or play clause, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is all you know, this is all falling into the capitalist lap. You know, it's just what the doctor ordered as far as running a network goes.
He said that Michael Eisner's statement.
Michael Eisner was Iger's predecessor at
Right.
at Disney.
That he objected to what was going on, and that
Michael Eisner, I didn't know him, but I let me put it this way: he's a fellow martial artist, so he has some honor. He has some honor, and in fact, a lot of people who do know him have said that about him.
About Michael Eisner?
Michael Eisner.
Yeah.
He had a terrible reputation among
Yes,
certain parts of Hollywood, but among the martial artists, he was considered a stand-up guy. Like I said, I don't know him personally.
Unlike Steven Seagal, who's
I think Seagal was one of the guys who he picked up on and made a star. But what is little known about, or I don't know if it's known or not, but what I know about Steven Seagal is really a first-class martial artist. He's a stinko actor. You know, he just plays that one role. But in terms of being an Aikido master, he's really good. And he's also, another thing people don't realize about him, he's about 8 feet tall. He's a monster guy, you know.
So my assumption is if Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air, his audience is going to be double. I mean, right? In your experience?
I would bet you any amount of money that he has renegotiated his contract with exactly that point in mind. Yes.
You think he's going to give Guillermo a cut?
I hope so.
Yeah,
Why not?
Well, maybe now we'll get Stephen Colbert back.
Well, Colbert. Well, now here's the real question: could, and Saltman, only you will know this, could Colbert, Kimmel, Rachel Maddow, John, what's his name, Stewart, and these other guys of the other guy he lives on the Vineyard, could they get together? Seth, what's his name?
Seth Rogen.
Seth, no, the at night.
Seth Meyers.
Seth Meyers. Could they get together and start an independent network that would work over the internet?
Well, I would love that.
Could I give him a job at Pacifica, for example?
Well, we'll just give them Pacifica. I mean,
independent network again. I didn't hear about that one.
Pacifica. Well, but Pacifica is only radio at this point.
Well, make it television.
YouTube channel. You need a YouTube channel.
A YouTube channel. Could they do a YouTube channel?
Of course they
that
could.
Would be worth billions of dollars.
Why do they need it? Let me structure your question. Okay, the question isn't could they, in my view, the question is not could they start a network. Sure, anybody could start a network. You've got one going right here on Monday nights, sort of, you know. So if you believe me, if you can do it, anybody can do it. Okay?
Thank you.
I'm just kidding. Seriously, the reason that there's a network developing around you is because there's that thing that nobody can define. You've got that thing.
Right.
You jump off the screen. Okay. That's why we love them. They jump off the screen. Now, here's what should happen, in my view. Somebody who's already got a network, and I'm going to tell you the name, Paul Steiger, who runs ProPublica, has the best news gathering operation in America. And
what about Harry Shearer? Harry Shearer's got a big following.
Paul Steiger should now expand his ProPublica to include an entertainment division, let's call it, that includes Harry Shearer, Rachel Maddow. This would be Paul would make a fortune, which he deserves, and he just exists on donations at this moment. He's a complete nonprofit public service organization. But I'm sure George Soros just gave Gavin Newsom $10 million.
Oh God!
I'm sure he'd give Paul Steiger another $10 million. That's chicken feed, and you could get these guys into the room for that. So that would be my recommendation. That somebody who's got a network that's a going concern, but that's missing. You okay? Missing comedy and entertainment should get these people, and you can get if you want exclusivity, you're going to pay more. But if you want them to do, give me 39 weeks, you can do that. It's all about money at this point, and not only about money, but now it's about money plus what's the word? Acceptance plus these are the guys that pissed on that urinated. Got to use the proper terms here. That urinated on the President Trump.
Well, who doesn't? I'm reminded of the line Ronald Reagan allegedly said. He got a dog, and somebody walked into the Oval Office and said, "Mr. President, that dog is going to pee on your desk." And Reagan said, "Well, why not? Everybody else does." But Dorothy Reik, you want to continue, and then Mike Hirsch. Dorothy, are you unmuted again? There we go. Mike, did you want to jump in, and then Dorothy?
My picture won't go on again.
Go ahead, Dorothy. Go ahead.
So, the guys from Midas Touch, who have 5 million viewers, have also made told Colbert, come
Midas.
on over.
Midas
Um,
Touch, I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
Touch is I don't know what to say. They do what do you call it? YouTube. They do emails. They do podcasts. They're huge. They've got more people than Joe Rogan or whatever.
Well, Jimmy Kimmel claims to have 20 million people on his internet, whatever he's got.
Well, he only
Right?
has 1.5 million viewers or something. It's not, Colbert has more viewers than he has, but they invited. I mean, you should check out Midas Touch. They're really good. They have
All
some.
right, I've heard of it. I have heard of it.
Harvey,
Yeah.
Yes.
they Midas Touch actually hosts that Court of History with Blumenthal and Wilentz that
Oh, yeah.
you want to. That's part of that grouping.
Okay, yeah, I saw it. I watched some of their stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So clearly then, here would be the lineup would be, Jimmy Kimmel, obviously, Steve Colbert, Jon Stewart, who seems to want to retire, but nonetheless, Seth, what's his name at night, Rachel Maddow, Desi Lydek, John Oliver, who has obviously a huge following. If they got together and started some kind of network, it would be a huge force, right? I mean, Trump,
Comedy Central.
well, Trump would have to bomb their headquarters, right? I mean, who would stand up to that? What's more powerful, talent or money, in the long run?
Talent generates money.
Give
Yeah.
some money to the talent.
Well, you're
People.
talking about a huge constituency between these guys, and if in a way, Jimmy Kimmel going back on, he's not going to run for president now. It would have been a great.
So they all came out of Comedy Central. All these guys that you're mentioning.
Well, Dave
Jimmy
Saltman
Kimmel.
and I knew
The Man
probably.
Show or something, Jimmy Kimmel, remember?
Well, we knew the greatest, very well, we knew the greatest female comedian of our generation, who was Gilda Radner. David wrote a book about her. And, we knew her in Ann Arbor. And she could have been a part of this, she would have been great.
She would have loved it. Yeah, she would have.
Yeah. So, wow. Okay, Mike Hirsch, you've had a hand, and then Mila. Mike, did you disagree?
Mila, you go ahead first.
Well, I
Mila, go
just
ahead.
wanted to say that unfortunately, one of the problems with Midas Touch is that they wouldn't allow Jessica Denson of Lights Out to talk about problems with the 2024 election. They suppressed that information, and she went off on her own. So that aside from that, they've really developed quite a following, millions of viewers. The spinoff, one of their spinoffs is something called Legal AF, and that's the spinoff that hosts the Court of History with Sidney Blumenthal and Sean Lentz. But they also have this wonderful part of Legal AF. They also have the Court Accountability Project, and we've got to mute. Sorry, they've got the Court Accountability Project with Lisa Graves and Eric Aronson or Aaron Aronson. I'm not quite sure of the name, but he was a staffer for. I'm sorry, for White House, for Senator Whitehouse, on really important issues around dark money. So at any rate, it's quite a network that they have developed, and it's a shame that they felt that they needed to suppress the people who were questioning the outcome of the 2024 presidential election.
Yeah, we got to deal with that. That's unfortunate. And we also have to wonder what their stand is on nuclear power. We always have to be careful about that. Heidi Vertauer, did you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I dropped a link into the chat for Stephen Colbert for president. It's it's a song that friends of mine did up here in Maine.
Oh, okay. Well, Stephen Colbert did run. Salty raised this with me. Stephen Colbert ran a fake campaign. He was yapping about fundraising, about PACs, and it was very effective actually, because he he was pointing out all the insanity of the money in our politics. And to highlight that, he filed to run for Senate in South Carolina. It wasn't a real campaign. He was just playing a game with fundraising.
Started a real PAC, and
Yeah.
his advisor was the former head of the Federal Election Commission.
Right.
Trevor,
And so,
Trevor something or other.
well, but you know, I've wanted Colbert for quite a while to run for Senate from South Carolina. I mean that's what's his name? Who's that guy that everybody thinks is gay? You know, from South Carolina, who's really awful. The senator.
Lindsey Graham.
Lindsey Graham. And you know, could Colbert, being a native of South Carolina, get elected senator from South Carolina? It's the most Republican, safest Republican seat anywhere, but if he could crack it, that would be enormous.
And how would you prevent him happening to him what happened to Gilda and my friend Al Franken?
What do you mean?
Well, Al Franken was the one guy who really did what we're talking about.
Yes, he did. That's right.
He hosed allegedly by the same party that elected him.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
And nobody has ever, you know, horsewhipped that woman for doing it.
We won't mention any names here, but horsewhipping. We still have 61 people with us. This is a fascinating discussion, but I think that the reinstatement of Jimmy Kimmel is hugely significant.
You're right.
I mean, you know, this is a very big deal. And what's Trump going to say about him now? You know, I mean, he's going to go wild, Jimmy Kimmel.
And I think this raises Bob Iger's stock a lot too, by the way.
Well, I was shocked when Bob Eiger, but I heard backstage, I heard that the real reason that Eiger took Jimmy Kimmel, was reinstating Jimmy Kimmel, is because Mickey Mouse threatened to quit. So, you know, you lose Mickey, I mean, you know, whose original name, by the way, was Mortimer. Yeah, we don't want, Robert, thank you for putting the senator's name in. We'll allow her to be she who shall be unnamed for the time being. But this is a fascinating discussion now. I had not, when I wanted to do this and to like seriously run Jimmy Kimmel for president, I did not anticipate that the networks were going to put him back on. I mean, did you, Saltman, what were the odds that you would have given on firing Jimmy Kimmel and having it stick?
I would have disrecommended firing him in the first place, but I gotta say, if they did this as a strategy, it was insanely brilliant. Let's fire the guy for one day, and then, you know, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Let's see what happens if we just hire him back. What are they going to do to us? You know, put me in jail? I mean, really? Bob Iger is that smart.
You think that they could have done this on purpose?
It didn't just happen. Well, it did just happen overnight. Yeah.
Oh my God, that never occurred. That's a conspiracy that I never. Oh, right. Milo was pointing out he was never actually fired, just suspended.
It was a one-day suspend. I was suspended for at least one day when I worked at ABC.
Well, what did you do?
Oh God, I never told you this story. There may still be an injunction out against me for telling about this, but actually, I'll tell you, it's interesting now that I'm thinking about it. It was a free speech issue. I became a First Amendment hero. Oh my God, I'm pretty sure they're gonna. If anyone's listening that's still alive from that era, I'll tell you what I did. It was in the newspapers, most of it anyway. So you remember back in the day, this would be in the 70s. I was mostly writing for the magazines. You know, I used to write for TV Guide, and I wrote for Esquire, and I wrote for Omni, the science magazine. I wrote for Rolling Stone. I was a columnist for Rolling Stone. And when I got hired at ABC was my first TV job. And that's where I met Bob Iger, in fact. It was this exact same period in the 70s. He had just hired on as a sports producer. And and I had written a front page piece in the Sunday New York Times. I'd written a lot I remember since we were in college together. I wrote for the New York Times for years. I wrote for them for 15 years, and I had a front page article, and that was what made ABC hire me, because they thought, oh, this guy's a real writer. He's not some hack like we have, on the staff already, and he's got a following because front page of the New York Times. And I made a deal with them saying, okay, fine. If you hire me, I get to keep writing, because I have a career going already as a magazine writer. And they said, fine. They didn't really pay any attention to it. Anyway, time goes on. I was there for almost 5 years, and I started making documentaries, and I learned a lot about the video and film business from them. They had some really good people there, including Bob Eiger, who became a friend of mine, and his wife at the time. And I wrote an article, and I admit this may have been a slipshod judgment, but I wrote an article for TV Guide, a humorous article. I was into writing humor in those days, humorous columns, the feuilleton, they call them in the literary world. And I wrote an article about working at ABC, how it was to work at ABC, and it was a smash hit. It's been republished in all kinds of journalism textbooks. I wrote actually a series. I wrote a couple of articles about working at ABC, and in the articles I named some of the real people at ABC who were my current people. Well, when I walked back into the office after one of those appeared, it was like bombs dropping over Dresden. I mean, it was nuclear winter as far as I was concerned. And their first immediate act was to suspend me. And they suspended, and I'll bet you this is what happened. Oh my God, that's a great question. I didn't think of it. They suspended me, and the Writers Guild came to my aid, and they said, best thing that could have happened, you are now a First Amendment celebrity. And I thought, like, oh my God, really? Seriously? I hadn't even, but it's like, oh yeah, I get it.
So now Jimmy Kimmel is a First Amendment
They suspended for writing an article. I mean, it couldn't be a worse violation of the First Amendment. And somebody got that back to the network brass, and they hired me back, and they said, okay, never mind. You're now on the overnight shift. You come into work at midnight, and you get out of work at 8 o'clock in the morning. So they put me on the worst duty, possible. It was like cleaning the toilets, But in fact, it was actually quite fun. I had to get used to different sleeping schedule. And I did the overnight for a couple of years until CBS hired me. Charles Kuralt got wind of this, and he hired me at CBS. And I worked very happily with Kuralt and that whole Sunday morning team.
Well, this whole story really intrigues me more about running Jimmy Kimmel for president. I mean, his not that I'm endorsing him, but it will be so interesting. The one thing about having Jimmy Kimmel being a candidate for president is that every time Trump says something, they have to go to somebody to refute him. And there's no president, we're too early yet, there's no presidential candidate that they have to go to. Now, if Kimmel was a declared or any one of these people was a declared candidate for president, then the media, when Trump says something, would have to go to them for balance. Is that right?
I think that since they repealed the equal time provision, maybe that's not right anymore.
All right. Well, it's worth thinking about. So, folks, this is a major celebratory moment. I think it's actually extremely significant. This is the equinox. It is Rosh Hashanah in in about an hour, and I did not expect them to hire back Jimmy Kimmel. I didn't think that would happen. But everybody here, you're hearing for the first time somebody who knew Bob Iger. who is the head of Disney. This is who may be the most powerful man in the world in many ways. Steve Bannon has always said that the real war for American power is with the media, not with Congress, not with the White House, not with the Supreme Court, but with the media. And he would know, this is Steve Bannon, the Opus Dei candidate for dictator of Earth. And that's what he's saying. And I thought Jimmy Kimmel was gone. And the idea first that they had to bring him back, and second, in the deep, deep conspiracy coming from someone who was an industry insider for all those years, to the idea that Bob Iger or Disney would have set this whole thing up and suspended him, and then have him come back. That is pure genius. That is beyond the pale. I never thought that.
Yeah.
Okay, your job, David, is to call up Bob Iger and say, Bob, did you set this up? Come on, man. Tell me. We want to hear it. Right?
Here, here, right now. What I thought was a true moment, talking about astrology or astronomy and all that, is when the moon had an eclipse and all you saw were the horns. It looked like the devil's horns coming up over the horizon. That was amazing. And it was just timed perfectly. Thank you.
Well, we can go with that. That's something really amazing. Okay, so have we been joined, Mike, by the woman who talked to us last week?
Yeah, we're not seeing her. So
okay, so let's continue this. I want to talk, and Dave, stay with us, please. I want to talk about the ceremony that they just had for this guy who was shot, Charles Kirk. As I say, I do not call him Charlie. I have two close friends named Charlie, and I never met Charles Kirk. I do, in retrospect, really regret that I never got to ask him about nuclear power. If I had had the opportunity to talk to Charlie Kirk and ask him about, they made him into this apostle of dialogue, right? Which kind of a stretch, right? But Nancy and Dorothy, can you wait just 1 second since I'm in the middle of this? So at the urging of my daughter, I listened. I didn't listen. I read the speech that his widow made at the ceremony yesterday. And I got to say, I found it, she's deeply religious. There is nothing that she said in that speech, so it was all political. She's a traditionalist in terms of the family, right? Husband, wife, the woman, whatever, and all that. But she did not hate the left. She did not say whatever that we expect from the MAGA mainstream, and she forgave him, which I thought was astounding. You never hear that from the evangelical right. Nobody is giving forgiveness for anything these days. And she came out. I was stunned by that. Now, of course, the big test will be when they find this kid guilty and they want to give him the death sentence. Will she intervene to prevent the death sentence? That's interesting. But in terms of if she's going to be the new spokesperson for this extreme right-wing movement, which of course, took a big jump up because of this, based on that speech, bring it on, as far as I'm concerned. Nancy, do you want to say something? And then Dorothy, Nancy Naparco?
I want to say I was pleased with her speech in that I've been involved over the decades in different mostly Christian organizations. And what she said was truly Christian. I've been so frustrated that the right-wing Christian movement is not Christian.
No.
It's about housing and welcoming the poor and feeding them, and that's not their thing. But I was, by contrast, very irritated by Trump's response. And that's what I wanted to say a couple of words about, because I did some research on it.
Irritated is about 2 levels of magnitude less than I thought you were going to say, but go ahead.
Okay, well, you're right. And what he said, in contrast to what Erica said, he said, quote, "I hate my opponent and I don't want the best for them." How dare he? Anyway, I looked this up because I'm not used to hearing presidents talk about enemies or hate. Obama once said during the election, "We're going to punish our enemies if the Latinos don't vote in the election." Quote, "We're going to punish our enemies and we're going to reward our friends who stand with us on issues that are important to us." The next day, he publicly apologized for that. That was the one time he spoke of that. Nixon, of course, we all know, referred to his enemies list. George W. Bush spoke of terrorists hating our country, our freedom, and everything we stand for. And that's his only speech about hate and enemies. But this is the clincher. President Lincoln, it's interesting, you talked about him earlier. Quote, "I am not destroying my enemies. I'm sorry, I am not destroying my enemies when I make them my friends."
Wow. I love Lincoln. The more I find out about Lincoln, the better I like him. Susan and I just watched a 3-part series documentary. What network was it on? Called Abraham Lincoln. It was really spectacular. I learned more about the Civil War from this than anywhere. Everybody on this should see the Spielberg movie where Daniel Day-Lewis plays Lincoln. That was otherworldly. And yes, I mean, you know, these with malice toward none. This was a civil war that tore the country apart. 600,000 people died. And you know how many people the Union prosecuted after the Civil War? One. Never in the history of warfare has a victorious army not prosecuted the people that they defeated. The one guy that was prosecuted, actually put to death, was a foreigner. He was a Prussian who ran the Andersonville prison camp, where people died in droves. I mean, it was Buchenwald, and you know, horrible. It was on a par with any Nazi not death camp because they didn't have gas chambers, but concentration camp. That's the one guy that they prosecuted. And Lincoln made the decision early in the war that they were not going to prosecute the Civil War. Even the officers were not prosecuted after the Civil War. And you have Donald Trump. It was grotesque what he said, especially after Erica Kirk spoke. It was just anyway. Who's surprised? Dorothy, go ahead.
Anyway, I think we really need to take Lincoln's words to heart.
Yeah.
When we turn our enemies into friends, we've destroyed the enemies.
Brilliant. It was, well, total Buddhism. I mean, he was really, you know, and as I've said before, you know, I know I've met Jesus many times during nonviolent demonstrations, you know, at the nuclear sites and for civil rights. And here we go. These guys are so unchristian. And Bobby, too. You know, Bobby Kennedy, completely unhinged. Bobby Kennedy, by the way, in his speech, claimed to have met Charlie Kirk in 2001. When Charlie would have been like 2 years old. So, you know, it's like, I don't think, anyway, we're not going to go into it. Stay with us, Nancy. What you said was beautiful. Dorothy and then Steve. Anybody else you want to chime in on this? We still have 57 people.
You know, I got a lot of heat, but I just feel that Charlie Kirk was a very, very dangerous person. He was a Pied Piper to the college students. He was spewing hateful thoughts to them. It was, I can't, it's not right for me to say this, but I'm glad he's gone. I think he was very dangerous to our country.
Well, the question now is, you know,
he didn't look scary. Yeah, well, you know, he was a good looking guy. He dressed nice. He talked quietly. but the New York Times has a summary of his views, and it would make your blood run cold.
Yeah, I've read that.
Christian nationalism to his disdain for women, and especially Black women, who he thought that did not have the brain processing power to be in the positions that they were in. I mean, it just on and on. He just every position he had is totally antithetical to anything any of us would think ever in our lives. And he was
Yeah.
going around
I've read that stuff.
colleges and feeding this garbage to college students who were listening to him. 100,000 showed up at his funeral. How many of them were young college students? A lot of
So
them.
the question now, Dorothy, is what happens now that the leader, the designated leader of this movement is the woman who gave that speech yesterday.
Well, hopefully she will moderate his views. I don't know what she really thinks. I didn't really listen to this whole thing.
Well, like I said, I didn't listen to it, but I did read it, and I saw nothing in there. I saw that gave me pause, and
her
Dr.
speech.
Nancy,
All right, fine, but what he was doing was totally terrifying to me.
Well, Trump just gave, this guy and Nancy, thank you for doing that research. Even Woodrow Wilson, who is my least favorite president, who was incredibly violent, racist, all that stuff, never gave a speech like that. Never. And neither did Andrew Jackson, who, or James K. Polk, who were the two worst imperial presidents, anti-Indian, anti-Black. Your phone.
He hated trans people, LGBTQ. It's ironic that a guy who was in love with a trans guy, a gay guy himself, was the one who did the deed. It was ironic that we don't know, just as he was answering a question about trans violence, as if trans people are causing all the violence in this country.
But we don't know that for sure. It's strange, Dorothy. I don't mean to interrupt. Sorry. This guy, the kid who allegedly did the deed, has completely disappeared from the media.
Because he won't say anything.
We don't hear anything about him now.
Because the LA Times had a summary today, but it was just old stuff because he's not saying anything. He's in prison and he's not talking. Why would he?
Both Jeffrey Epstein and the killer, alleged killer, have disappeared from the headlines. And obviously
not quite disappeared.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens here.
You can find news about him. Just Google it, and there's new stuff all the time.
Right. Steve Caruso, go ahead, please.
Yeah, we have Heidi Verthaler was going to give us a proposal for.
Well, yeah, let's do that. Let's do this in a couple of minutes, okay? I want to take this another few minutes, and then we'll get to Heidi. If you can wait, that would be wonderful. And we are going to end at the top of the hour, but we got a couple of people who haven't spoken. Ginger Harris, I don't think you've ever spoken. I may be wrong. And then we'll go to Donald Smith, who hasn't spoken yet today, and then back to whoever. Go ahead, Lynn. Oh, I'm sorry, Ginger Harris.
Hi. I have never spoken here, but I've attended a large number of these, and I am persuaded by some podcasts that we are seeing the same thing happen that happened with JFK's killing, where the person who was set up to supposedly kill him was not actually the one who killed him. So I don't know if I'm the only one on this of the 60.
Actually, Ginger, I'm glad you raised that. I saw somebody did a shtick. He was a comedian, I think, but he read the emails that the alleged killer supposedly sent, and basically they're not credible. I mean, and having been in a situation where the FBI faked documents, I've experienced that, and I wish I kept the link. But he read through stuff that Sorry, my daughter's calling me. Hold on one second here. Sure.
Well, let's keep the show going while Sluggo talks to his daughter, I guess, or me back on. Sluggo, you're on mute.
He's talking.
Sorry,
Sluggo,
I muted
there you go.
myself just to deal with my daughter. So, you know, the idea that this kid didn't do it is possible. I mean, I read this guy dissect the alleged emails that this kid allegedly sent, and he's right; they were completely not credible. So, Ginger, you've raised the issue, and you know, I do not in any way, shape, or form believe that Oswald killed Kennedy. I don't believe Sirhan killed the second Kennedy. I don't believe that the guy they say killed Martin Luther King did it either. So we'll see. Maybe that's why it's so quiet. That's why I raised it. You know, Donald Smith, jump in, please, and then we'll go to Mike and Lynn.
Okay, two things. One is the Democrats a lot of Democrats in Congress, I forget, 50 or something like that, voted for the Republican resolution that did two things. It condemned political violence, which is fine. The other thing is it honored Charlie Kirk in some very flowering language. And so my member of Congress did it, and I asked him about it, and he said, well, it wasn't good. But like Indivisible, a lot of people were saying, why did the Democrats do this? They just bend over, you know, they're played like strings by the Republicans because they honored Charlie Kirk. And so that's one thing I want to say. The second thing is on next door, we discussed politics, and a Republican said, I think the way Democrats are celebrating this death may have just cost them the midterms. Of course, I don't think no Democratic politician is celebrating it, and very few Democrats are celebrating it. Democrats are criticizing Kirk, but of course, Republicans are saying, oh, the Democrats are celebrating that. First of all, it's very hypocritical, but it's also a lie. Very, very few Democrats are celebrating it. So those are the 2 points I wanted to make. Fine.
Well, thank you, Donald. And of course, I thought even, you know, okay, but I thought Donald Trump's speech was one of the most atrocious things I've ever heard. Absolutely atrocious. And I think that some of the conservatives and the right-wingers agree with that. I mean, it's inexcusable. And I thought her speech was perfectly fine. And so you're right. I think most of the Democrats have taken great care on Charlie Kirk. And you know, if you read what Jimmy Kimmel actually said, by the way, he was not attacking Charles Kirk in any way. He was attacking the MAGAs. He was basically saying that Kirk has been a MAGA all this time, which he was, and that now a MAGA killed him. That's what he said. It wasn't a put down on Charles Kirk. It was a put down on the MAGA movement in general. And now we'll see how that plays out, because I think it's very suspicious that we've heard nothing about this kid.
Yep.
Very suspicious to me. Mike Hurst, did you want to jump in, and then Lynn Feinerman?
Yes, Sluggo. Jimmy Kimmel was trashing Trump for talking about repairs to the ballroom in the White House and not giving a bit of care to Charlie Kirk at all. So Trump turns this on and off, and Trump is kind of a sociopath that he really doesn't care about anybody except for what they can do for him at any particular time. And I think that he was sad that Charlie Kirk was shot, but probably no more than a lot of other people, even though he knew Charlie Kirk personally. But Trump moved on, and Kimmel was dead on. He played the part of a political humorist by pointing out that Trump was ridiculous on that. And that's what infuriated Trump, is that he exposed Trump once again for being an incredibly narcissistic, self-centered, horrible human being who, just, turns on this vengeance diatribe and then turns it off when it's convenient. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, he makes, Nixon look like Gandhi.
Yes, Nixon would have never said what Trump said. No.
Charlie Kirk had a big hand in getting all those white boys to vote for Trump. He was a big part of the 2024 campaign.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what Trump's first emotion was when he found out Charlie Kirk was killed. He was scared because his initial first calculation was if they can kill Charlie Kirk, they can kill me. That was his first, and they just upped the security details. They spent another $50 million to protect him. It was not about. I don't think Trump was sad. I'm not sure he's capable of being sad about somebody else being harmed, but I think he was frightened, basically. For Lynn
We also
Finerman,
upset about the next election because he wasn't going to have Charlie
yes,
Kirk there to
yes.
he votes for him.
And then it turned around, and Kimmel's power now is just exponentially greater. So we'll see how that plays out. That's why I still want to run. I still think he should run for president. But what can I say?
What does
Lynn
Kimmel know to
Feinerman?
run for president? We already have a president who doesn't know much. Kimmel's wonderful. He's a funny guy, but he can't be president.
Oh no, but he's so smart. Those guys are so smart. Kimmel,
Yeah,
I
but
think Kimmel would make a look. Look at the
I'd like to
president.
see AOC be president, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Look at Zelensky. He was a comedian. Reagan was an
And look
actor.
what's going on.
Well, I think you're right. Okay. Lynn Feinerman, go ahead. And then we want to give Heidi a chance to make her presentation. I want to turn to Gary O'Connor real quick also for a report on Dodger Stadium. Lynn, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just following up on what you were saying, Harvey, about the situation with not having heard from Tyler Robinson at all. I'm very concerned because my sense of Luigi Mangioni's situation is that he had a lot of legal and a lot of money behind him immediately after he committed the murder of the CEO, and that he is the legal and money power is protecting him. My sense of Tyler Robinson is that he has no protection. No one has stepped forward to say that they are representing him. Perhaps, perhaps because they're frightened. And I'm hoping that there's going to be some kind of Clarence Darrow who's going to step up and say, I'm going to get totally into this case and I'm going to defend this young man. There have been numerous of these kinds of high profile murder cases. There was Rittenhouse, Kyle Rittenhouse,
right,
who murdered two people on the street, got a burger from the police, and then was let off for something, self-defense, I don't know what. And they are not being played out in an objective way. Granted, that is the tenor of the times in this nation. And when you have a Supreme Crooks that is that corrupt, it trickle down criminality. But I really want to say that I'm hoping that there will be some powerful legal help for Tyler Robinson.
I did see, I may have misunderstood. I thought there was a female attorney who stepped forward that said she would defend him, but I may be wrong, and nobody high profile yet. I would not be surprised if he didn't do it. I mean, we're going to get a lot of stuff here and there, and we'll see. And you mentioned the kid who shot that CEO. That we haven't heard from him for a while, and we're not hearing from Jeffrey Epstein either for a while. It's very interesting, but nothing. I don't think anything is going to top Trump's speech. That was the most inappropriate speech I have ever seen as a historian from a president, and I don't think it's going to go unnoticed, frankly, and I don't think it did at the time. I think a lot of people were really appalled by what he said, especially in contrast to what she said. And then she was my wife pointed out she was a former Miss Arizona, by the way. So just whatever that means, I don't know. So okay, listen, this has been a fascinating discussion. We're going to continue it, obviously. It grew out of our initial idea that we're going to run Jimmy Kimmel for president. Now that he has his show back, boy, that changes the whole dynamic. And Salty, thanks for all your insight on that. And after you hear from Bob Iger to tell us if he set the whole thing up, we'll have you back. Okay, so we got a couple people. Heidi Vertal, we're going to go to the top of the hour, which is 20 minutes. Heidi, you wanted to speak up. Gary, I want a report on anything news on Soul Rising Dodger Stadium. But Heidi, you made the initial request. You wanted to make, I guess it's your birthday, Mazel Tov, and you look like you're about 18 years old. So go ahead, please, and tell us what you wanted to present to us in 5 minutes, and then we'll go to Gary O'Connor. And anybody else have anything to say? We'll go. Happy Equinox and Rosh Hashanah to everybody. Go ahead, Heidi.
Well, I was hoping that that you would have read my proposal and to ask me questions, but I think to give people the idea, I'll go ahead and start reading it.
No, don't read it. Just give us a summary.
Okay.
Reading it never works. You got to give us a summary,
That's
please.
what I thought. But yeah, no, I what it is it's basically talking about how we can get people like Charlie Kirk, or is it Charles Kirk? How?
Either way, go ahead.
Right. How we can get people of his background to be interested in the fact that the green energy economy will actually work for them. We've had a lot of talk back and forth about people who are basically on the fence or just basically not looking at the problem at all. And they're seeing that we need to look, they're not seeing the fact that we have these solutions. And so my thoughts is that we need to basically make it really understandable for them to see a clear vision forward for what we need to do for the future, and to be able to make that to be able to show them that this stuff can be a reality. I think it comes from holding town meetings where everyone is brought together to basically talk about what's the need in our community and what we can do to help bring people to find out what the strengths of the community are, what the things that they can do within the green energy economy are, and basically figure out, who's going to hammer out who's going to do this, and also who's going to do this, who's going to do that, and also get them to the point where we look at like a hotline to say these are the heroes standing up for the climate, and these are the people that aren't, and make sure that the people that are standing up for the climate are the ones that are getting the awards for that. And
that's good.
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, that's my idea, or our idea, the general idea of trying to enlist Zelensky and Ukraine, and see if we can frame the war, the Russian assault on Ukraine as, the evil fossil nukes versus the Solartopians of the future. Howie, do you think that's in line with what Heidi is saying here? Is that at all doable? Oh, Heidi, Howie, you're muted. Sorry. And then we're going to go to Gary O'Connor. Go ahead, Howie.
Yeah, I think it's doable, and it's what the climate movement has to take up. I don't think it describes Putin's motives. He wasn't going for fossil fuels in Ukraine. He was going for Ukraine for geopolitical reasons, imperial reasons, the history of imperial Russia. But, I mean, that's where Trump hopes to cut a deal with him and get him interested in maybe partitioning Ukraine with Western interests and doing oil and gas business. I think, though, Putin doesn't want to cut a deal just to do business. He wants Ukraine. He's going to string Trump along, and he's going to try to do business as well. But from the climate movement side, that's how we got to get the climate movement engaged in this, solidarity with Ukraine and stopping this Trump-Putin climate bomb that they're cooking up with this business deal.
Well, I think it can easily be portrayed as a war, an energy war. And especially if we could ever get the Ukrainians to, it makes absolutely no sense for the Ukrainians to even think about building more nuclear, even though I've heard that in the grapevine. And certainly, Putin is the great Satan of fossil nuke, along with Trump. Anyway, we'll talk about it more next week.
All I'm saying, he's got so much oil, gas, and coal, and uranium for nukes, and wants to build nukes. He doesn't even need Ukraine to do that. He's already got that. Yeah, I think Ukraine.
Okay.
It's got some gas and it's got those pipelines, which he's definitely interested in. But so is Trump. That's what that minerals deal was about. It was more about gas than rare earth minerals.
Trump trying to kill the wind industry, and along the way making it clear that nobody's ever going to want to do business with the United States again. Trying to kill a project of what, 60, 70, 80% complete. You got to be kidding me. I mean, it's really grotesque. Thank you, Howie. Tatanka, you raised your hand. You hadn't talked yet.
Yeah, Howie, I have a question. Do you remember prior to the 2016 election, it became an issue for a very short time that Trump was one of 4 people who were going to be able to buy the Russian oil and gas company and basically buy up the entire Russian portion of the Arctic in order to in order to get to the oil there, which is a huge amount of oil, you have to first melt the ice caps. And there was even a time period where there were ads on the computer that I saw. I don't watch TV, so I don't know if they're on the TV, about how wonderful it'd be, because in the future they showed a ship going across the North Pole with no ice. So my question is, were you aware of that there was a deal on the table? It started to become public. They took it off really quickly. But I think the motivation is Trump wants, for himself personally and his friends, he wants all that. And then he'll give Putin whatever he wants, even though Putin is holding the strings over him.
I have not heard that was something Trump was interested in 2016. I do know that Putin thinks global heating is good for Russia because it is melting the Arctic and then opening up those gas and oil reserves.
Yeah.
No, I'll see if I can. I don't remember that, but I'll see.
Okay. I think it'd be worth looking up.
Well, is there an actual conspiracy to heat the planet so they can melt the Arctic so they can dig for oil?
Yeah, really.
Is that as real as Bob Iger setting up the whole thing with Jimmy Kimmel? I don't know,
Well,
I think it's more real. In other words, the oil and gas companies, they've known for decades they're going to heat up the planet and melt the Arctic ice. So they didn't care, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right.
I think I've told this story, but I was offered a job through Stanford Research Institute. It basically would have been a CIA job in the November of 1976, right after the 76 election, where I had been the campaign director for David Harris for Congress.
Okay.
And didn't have a job. And they offered me a job, this couple that was involved in the campaign. And I found out, in asking what they were doing, is that they were working with the Soviet republics, and that they were trying to convert them all to democracy. So I knew it had to be a CIA operation because nobody gets in there without that. But the job they offered me was Ukraine. And I knew I wasn't going to take it, but the information I found out was I asked for their 50-year plan. And they took me all the way up to 2020 and also I knew because the person giving me this information also had information from Royal Dutch Shell from Exxon. I also knew that by 2020, they said the goal of all this with Ukraine was to have Russia become a part of Europe. And why, I asked? They said that's to focus on our real enemy, China. So what I see shaping up is the attempt, and it's gone through some changes since Zelensky and everything, but it's the same thing they anticipated. Going after oil well up maybe through the century. At that time, maybe they didn't think it was going to melt that much, but the goal was basically to have Russia, force Russia into the West with the US, so Russia and the US could face off in the war against China.
And here we are.
And here we are, 50 years later.
Just think, Tatanka, if you'd have taken the job, you'd have been Zelensky.
Could have been.
Could have been. Mike Hurst, you want to jump in? And we go to Gary O'Connor. Heidi, your presentation was excellent. Thank you so much. And it really set us off here. Mike, did you want to jump in?
Well, I had a quick question for Heidi. And first of all, thank you for thinking about reaching out to people who are currently highly skeptical of climate, because I think that, my tendency is to say they're not going to listen to us. But I think that you're reminding us that if we don't try, then they definitely won't. So, Heidi, can you talk a little bit? And Howie, I also want to thank you for saying that the climate movement has to take it upon ourselves not to just talk to each other and regale each other with our doomsday scenarios, but we really need to reach out to people who we aren't reaching so far. So between Heidi and Howie, I think we've got a game plan, because we've got to change the script.
Right, but the other thing to jump in on is, and I know you know this, Mike, as does everybody, is that the numbers are on our side now. We have Milton Friedman. We have Milton Friedman on the side of renewable energy.
Well, Sluggo, if the facts were all it took, then Trump never would have been elected, and neither would W. Bush, and we would be in a much better position.
Right. There you go. Gary O'Connor, did you want to say something? I want to get you to talk about, if you can, about the whole scenario of solarizing Dodger Stadium. But let's go to Howie, and then if Gary chimes in, we'll do that.
Yeah, well, I'm skeptical, despite what Tatanka says, that the CIA or whoever can plan 50 years ahead. I mean, they can't figure out what's going on right now. So when I was in Ukraine, I met with the president of the miners union, who's an old new lefty. He grew up in Kryvyi Rih, knew the Zelenskys. Zelensky's father kicked him out of the Young Communists because he called him a new left hippie from the West. And he went into the mines like most people in Ukraine do, and led the biggest strike the Soviet Union ever saw with the mines in Kryvyi Rih. And so I think, that is where Ukraine's independence movement came from, among other places. I mean, Ukraine has had a national identity for 4 centuries, but they were colonized by the Poles and the Russians, and in the South, the Ottoman Empire. And one of the reasons it's a class struggle in a way, because the Ukrainians' landlords were the Russians, and they still feel that. And, the 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 million, depending on what source you read, were killed during the Holodomor, that mass starvation in the mid-30s. It's really, I think that's where Ukraine's thrust from independence came. And I think we give the CIA too much credit when people have these revolutions. Some people say the CIA is always behind them, but actually the people themselves in those countries, trying to throw off oppression.
Well, somebody was looking for. I mean, in the 1970s, we had this fair, Toward Tomorrow fair in Amherst, and Amory Lovins had a 50-year vision. Although we've had Amory on, and I've asked Amory, in 50 years ago, would they have predicted that solar and wind would be as far along as they are? And he said no. I mean, the great miracle of our time is the incredible technological leaps that have been taken in renewable energy. I mean, there's nothing else like it. Renewables are have dropped in half, less than half, in the last 10 years. So it seems to be proceeding. Gary O'Connor, can we get you to speak on this? I can't. I don't know if you can speak on it.
I can't really. Harvey, I don't think you look at the chat.
No, I
but,
don't.
Okay. Well, I've put a couple of 3 paragraphs in there for you to read
Okay.
because I can't add more than
Okay, so we'll look at the chat.
Yeah,
Gary and
thanks.
I have been corresponding about the possibility of bringing solar into Dodger Stadium. The Dodgers lost last night, but they are going to be in the playoffs, and the Olympics. There's been some back and forth, but the Olympics are still coming. Gary, if there's anything else you want to add orally, I guess not.
No, I look forward to the challenge of SoFi because with the Olympics coming up, you've got an absolute deadline that nobody can ignore.
Right. SoFi Stadium, which is gargantuan, is going to be hosting the swimming in the Olympics. It's going to be the world's largest swimming ever, putting in a giant stadium for the swimming events. We're down to the last 4 minutes to talk it. You want to jump in real quick? Thank you again, Gary.
Okay.
Well, you're muted here. Hold on.
I agree with you, Howie, and I understand that history of Ukraine. What I was saying is that they are a pawn in the CIA's plan to have Russia go where they wanted Russia to go.
Right. And if you watch this Turning Point series, you'll see how key Ukraine was and it has been. And Putin, who really came out of the blue, according to this documentary, although I doubt that, Yeltsin was a total disaster. In comes Putin, and Putin has always been preoccupied with Ukraine. So we'll see how it plays out. But if we can next week introduce the energy war aspect into that war, maybe it'll help. I mean, Greenpeace is as formidable a global force as any is. This has been a wonderful session. We still have 48 of you with us. We're going to take off now. Happy equinox, happy Rosh Hashanah, everybody. I will have great news next week, I promise. And this was really phenomenal. And I got to say that the return of Jimmy Kimmel is a huge deal. I still want to run him for president, but we'll see how that goes. Everybody, thank you, Steve Caruso, for engineering. Thank you, Progressive Radio Network, Mike Hirsch, Maurice, and everybody. We will see you next week, everybody, at 240. We'll be at 240 next week, and I look forward to it. No nukes, everybody, and Happy New Year. And thank you, Heidi. Great presentation, Heidi. Really appreciate it. Thank you. And happy birthday to Heidi.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. See you next week.